Are you ready to move on to the Miami Heat?
Yes, sir.
They acquired Kyle Lowry on a 3-year, $85 million deal, fully guaranteed for Goran Dragic and Precious Achua, NFT. As I asked what a Precious Achua was, you said it's an NFT. He's an NFT, excuse me. They signed re-signed Duncan Robinson to a 5-year, $89.9 million deal, an early termination option in the final season. $79.9 million are guaranteed overall. 9.9 million is also guaranteed in that final season. That's a very weird. There's an early termination option, but it's also only partially guaranteed. They signed PJ Tucker to a
Shout out to
2-year.
ETO. Not a lot of ETOs anymore.
Right. Signed PJ Tucker to a 2-year, $14.4 million deal, player option on that second season. Signed Victor Oladipo to a 1-year deal at the minimum. Signed Max Strus to a 2-year, $3.4 million deal, non-guaranteed in the second season. Signed Gabe Vincent to a 2-year, $3.5 million deal, non-guaranteed in that second season. Signed Dwayne Dedmon to a 1-year deal at the minimum. Signed Markieff Morris to a 1-year deal at the minimum. Signed Omer Yurtseven to a 2-year, $3.2 million deal, non-guaranteed in that second season. Signed DJ Stewart to a 1-year deal at the minimum. Signed Udonis Haslem to a wasted roster spot at the minimum. Signed Marcus Garrett to a two-way contract. And as you were nice enough to pencil in for me, because I'm always going to forget the extensions because I hate them. They signed Jimmy Butler to a 4-year, $184 million extension. He will be earning $50.7 million in his age 36 season, which is the final year of that contract. Notable subtractions to recap: Goran Dragic, Precious Achua, who is a solid prospect, by the way, even though we were joking about him being an NFT. Kendrick Nunn, who's with the Lakers. Trevor Ariza, who's also with the Lakers. Nemanja Bjelica, and you also wrote in Andre Iguodala as a notable subtraction as well, even though, maybe stretching the boundaries of notable there. But what grade did you give them for their offseason?
Hurts. I gave him an A because I just respect an F it. Let's light this money on fire. We're going for it. In this situation, that you can look. It's terrifying that Lowry has 3 for 85 going into his mid and late 30s. It's terrifying that Butler has a 4-184 extension. That's wild to me. Is Tucker 36 or 35? Whatever it is, that's scary to pay anyone decent money there. And Duncan Robinson, that's a lot of money. I think that's just what you pay elite shooters, maybe, who can kind of transform an offense just because of the attention they draw. If you're gonna really splurge on a shooter, I'm okay with it being Duncan Robinson and maybe 3 or 4 other guys in the whole league in terms of specialists. And based on what Joe Harris got last off season, I think not crazy. All that's terrifying if you pick it apart, but the Heat, they got older, they got tougher. They have to be taken seriously. They're going to be a nightmare to play against, assuming decent health. I just like that. There's no question about this team's ambition, and there's no question about their commitment to doing whatever it takes, spending whatever it takes, sacrificing whatever future flexibility and whatever outs they would have had to pursue that ambition. So I don't know. I kind of it just feels like this is kind of what I want to see from a team that's just pretty good, better than that 2 years ago, obviously made the finals and is F it, man, let's go. We don't have forever. Let's just try to win this way. So I think it's probably my highest grade in the East.
I gave them a B plus, and I don't hate anything they did, and I echo everything that you already said. I don't care about I'm fine with the Jimmy Butler extension, even with his limitations. The limitation being that he just won't shoot threes basically anymore. He was borderline top 10 player last year. And so, yeah, you already signed, if you want to go for it for the next 2 years and then figure it out later, I'm all for that. We've also seen the Heat already dig themselves out of, it's not the same because these are stars, but we all thought those James Johnson, Dion Waiters deals were going to cripple them. And they ended up figuring out a way to get out of that. So I actually don't care about that. And even look, the Victor Oladipo flyer is just nice. You retain his bird rights in the event that he comes back and is really good next season. Some of the things I just question about this team is if they go a little bit too old, because there's just not a lot of sustainable role players, or let's say known quantities around the Kyle Lowry, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler trio. You have Duncan Robinson, great. Tyler Herro is still an unknown, but he's at least younger, and I think he had a better year, or at least as the season went on, showed more than people gave him credit for. That's like kind of it right now. And so this feels like a very transient supporting cast. And when you put that together, while also not having enough shooting on the roster, it seems right now, because Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler, your top two players, they don't space the floor at this point. Kyle Lowry will help you there, his off the dribble shooting, even though there was sort of a dip there from him. I think he'll be fine. PJ Tucker shot under 32% on corner threes. I don't think that you can just guarantee that he's going to knock down those set looks anymore. Just where are the shooters? It's Robinson, Max Strus, and then I guess do we consider Tyler Herro a shooter right now? Even Victor Oladipo, if he's fully healthy, has just never been this lights out shooter. And so I take issue with that, and I also take issue with just give Udonis Haslem a coaching spot and pay him more than he gets for the league's minute. I'm sorry, it's a waste of a roster spot. I know he's valuable in the locker room. Can't this be like, when it was a Javon Howard situation where he did the same thing for the Heat, but he wasn't actually on the roster? I don't, he's a Heat legend. I get it. Why are we using a roster spot on Udonis Haslem when this could become a clear need, like to use an extra roster spot down the line? All small things. And I think in an offseason where it was very hard to make substantive improvements because the market was so limited and teams were competing for the same players, they were the team. They might be the only team that you look at this offseason and say they moved up a tier. And they're still below Brooklyn in the East. But after that tier, like you can at least talk yourself into a pathway to them beating Philly with whatever happens with Ben Simmons, to maybe beating Milwaukee, even though I'd still pick Milwaukee in that series, to being better or on the same level as Atlanta. So I think that's great. And I'm totally all for we're going for it these next 2 years. And if it doesn't look great on that final year of Kyle Lowry's contract, we'll deal with it then. If Jimmy Butler, the back end of his extension, doesn't look great, we'll deal with it then. It's the supporting cast. I don't know if they did enough this season, but specifically looking a little bit more down the line, it just feels like there's a lot of stop gaps here and unfilled holes at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I would say that just like there aren't a lot of teams that have more, the Heat, depending on how you feel about Herro, Adebayo clearly is like, he's like your bridge to whatever next era you want to get to, assuming this goes sideways after a couple of years and you have to, really pivot it. But like there aren't a lot of teams that have, more than, an Adebayo Herro kind of way out, I guess, that are this good. Certainly, like if you're going to be this good, you're just kind of going to be old generally. And I just reiterate what you said, like the Heat kind of know how to do this. They kind of know how to. They used to do it with first rounders. They just didn't care. Like they never had a first round pick for years and years and years. Earlier this past decade, I guess mostly, and they just kind of figure it out. And like I don't know, that's not a strategy I would recommend to a lot of teams. But the Heat just kind of know how. Part of it's the market, I guess. They know that they're an attractive market, and that gives them some advantages to sort of figure things out and get the guys that they want. But they're better at getting out of tight spots than most. So. I don't know. I just kind of loved it. And I totally agree. They did move up a notch in this. I don't know if there's anyone else in the East that's so obviously true for.